In the general population, about 8% of youth are in the LGBT community, but in the youth homeless population, that number is at about 40%. This Welcome to Coral Canyon sign resembles the landscape right next to it. Burnt and unrecognizable. And volunteers will sort through a warehouse full of toys just to find the perfect one. This is the first day the Ryans have been back. Their house is okay, but their shed is a different story. Inside were yearbooks, wedding photos, but compared to what happened next door, that's a lot worse. Noah says the best way to help these guys is to keep a distance of at least 10 feet when you see them on the beach. So Michelle rescues dogs like Rosalie, who would be a little bit harder to adopt out. Even though there are less people here than there were in the Phoenix March in 2018, the message still holds strong. Equality for all women. At least 17 homes in this Malibu community ended up like this one, but there could have been more if it weren't for the efforts of neighbors nearby. Survivors are also here, and they're telling us they're visiting to get some closure. Even though a year has passed, survivors still feel the impact of October 1st. A local student shared her experience with me from that night and how those events are still with her and her family. Survivors are back in Las Vegas a year later.
Let the light in your spirit continue to shine. Don't let it go out.
And even though one ASU student couldn't be there for the sunrise remembrance,
let that light lead you in your life.
She remembers that night every day.
I'm almost angry that it's been a year. I can't believe that. That was the Mandalay Bay right there.
Shay Diaz is a survivor of the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival. She decided to stay home in Phoenix during the year anniversary ceremonies.
To measure the mechanical advantage, there's your resisting, your effort, and your fulcrum, and your fulcrum's like the joint.
Right now, she's studying for midterms at ASU, but her thoughts are never very far from that night 1 year ago. She thought she'd be bringing back memories like this one, captured in a video at the concert before it was a killing ground.
Finally, I realized this is happening, and you gotta do something.
Diaz was in a group of about 30 friends and family members. They were separated when the shots rang out.
That was the most heartbreaking thing, to not see them afterwards.
Her little sister was in the Mandalay Bay. You can hear the shooting start in her Snapchat.
Then this is awkward because I know.
And as hard as that day was for Diaz, for her dad, it may have been even harder.
She's probably seen more in her lifetime than most people will ever see.
We met her family later in Las Vegas outside of the Mandalay Bay.
The stage was right here.
It was important for them to return.
Looking at this building behind me, it's just a building. It's just a building that some guy chose to use as a tool to exploit whatever was going on in his mind.
His entire group survived that night.
Lisa Romero Muniz.
But for the 58 who didn't.
Angela Gomez, 20.
Austin Davis, 29.
Carly
Riverside,
Kriebom,
California.
33.
And Sandy Casey,
Sadora, Iowa. Jessica
Candace
Messenger,
Bowers,
Andrea
7.
Melissa Ramirez, 28.
Their legacy will continue to ring on. Shay Diaz's family said that the main reason they came out is to support other families who lost someone.
Hey, Betty.
What's on your mind today?
We have primary colors that you know very well about.
For Dora Hernandez,
So let's start with the yellow and we'll add some red.
it's getting paintbrushes in the hands of her students.
So funny to call them students because they're usually much older than I am. I've learned a lot from you, Anna Banana.
But she's not always the teacher.
What I've learned from Betty is you focus on something and you do it and do it and do it.
I just enjoy doing it.
From Rolly, I've learned attitude. Bill is really consistent. It's Vicky, very joyful, very good.
Focus for the class with art in mind isn't the painting, but the camaraderie.
You still love me?
And sometimes the focus,
And of course,
is on recalling a name.
can't remember.
Betty, she's extraordinary.
The class is for those dealing with dementia or brain injuries.
It helps when you share something you have in common with everybody else.
And just across the hall
Oh, there they go again.
is another type of support.
Laughing next door like they're having more fun than we are.
With coffee and donuts, the artist's loved ones share their own stories.
I think like it for the same reason they do. We're all caregivers of somebody who has Alzheimer's, so sharing the same experience because we're in the same boat is a good thing for us.
Always do your own thing.
And they do work on their own paintings. But you can't say they're on their own.
Rolly, he's over the top.
What'd you call me?
Over the top.
Stop your gambling.
And at the end of the class, what's on everyone's mind?
Good night, Irene.
It's whatever Rolly is singing. In Phoenix, Samie Gebers, Cronkite News. Thousands of people showed up to President Trump's rally, among them Butch Dukeman.
Hey, there's these nice gals.
A top issue for him, immigration. He supports the president's wall and thinks Trump is pushing the country in the right direction. Many in this crowd would agree. Dukeman, like others, waited hours in the heat. For many, nothing but a red Make America Great Again hat to block out the sun.
Said you would be back.
Charlotte Gamble has been out here since 9:30 a.m. and wasn't let in until 2:30 in the afternoon. She's worried about the country turning socialist. She's a mom and thinks the president is making the country safer for her children. Protesters were hard to find during the afternoon, but supporters were plenty, and many told us they even made friends in line. This is Desi Brousseau. She came up to Mesa from Tucson by herself. She's a millennial, but she says she's not a typical one. She says those surrounding her are much more in line with her views. So we heard from people waiting in line for the rally. Now, let's see what the other side has to say. While thousands showed up in support of Trump, only a few dozen protesters lined up against them. But this is where the crowd was at its loudest. This is Kirk Linden. He called the president a dangerous fool.
No, actually, I'm not.
He describes the rally as cult-like.
Good for you, so far.
Bikers for Trump, they would disagree. Rose Myth says that if she didn't come down here today, she would be tossing and turning at night. She believes the country is in ruins and says the nation deserves a president who respects women. Her sign, you can't fix stupid, but you can vote it out. Alec Bradshaw is a student. He said he should be studying right now and he's missing hours as a server. But he's out here with protesters. He thinks the president, quote, isn't doing a thing for students like him. The man next to him is Chad Ness. He says he's out here because of the amount of corruption he believes is happening in this administration. When he described the president, the word he used was liar. In Mesa, Samie Gebers, Cronkite News.